All right, let's jump right into this explainer. We are taking a look at two tiny words that honestly cause massive confusion for English learners all over the world: for and since. Look, if you're listening to this right now, you're already putting in the work. You're practicing. But today, we're going to fix a very specific, super common hesitation. We're dropping all that complicated grammar stress. Instead, we're just going to have a real conversation about how these words actually carry the emotion of time.
Because you know the feeling, right? You're talking and suddenly you think, wait, which one is it? Is it I've lived here for 5 years or since 5 years? You are absolutely not alone if you pause before saying something like this. It's incredibly common to mix them up. And yeah, when you do, your confidence probably takes a little hit. But my goal today is to completely validate that frustration and give you a really calm, natural way to finally, permanently solve this dilemma.
Moving into our first section, the big grammar confusion and why we need to normalize everyday mistakes. The reality of learning a language is that you might accidentally say, I work here for 2020, or maybe I live here since 5 years. And the second those words leave your mouth, you kind of freeze. We've all been there. But here is the absolute secret, okay? Even though those little slip-ups can make your confidence drop, native English speakers will still understand you completely. Seriously. Making these mistakes will absolutely not stop communication. They know exactly what you mean. That being said, actually feeling the difference between the two will skyrocket your confidence, and as we all know, confidence is a real game changer when you're speaking. Which brings us to section 2, time length versus starting point. Let's make these mechanical rules simple.
So the absolute crucial point here is understanding the core difference in how English actually listens to your thoughts about time. Let's look closely at the word for. We use for when we are talking about a block or a period of time. It's a duration. It literally measures how long something continues. Whether that's 3 years, 2 hours, or just 5 minutes, for is basically the measuring tape you use to check the length of time that has passed. You feel the duration.
And then we have since, which is a completely different beast. Since talks about a starting point. It's a very specific moment in time. Think of it like pointing at a date on a calendar, a specific year, a day, or even an exact time on a clock. Like since Monday, since 2020, or since this morning. It acts as an anchor. It pinpoints the exact moment an action kicked off. It doesn't measure the length at all. It just points straight to the start.
To really cement this, think about someone hosting a show. Saying, I've done this podcast for 3 years, puts all the focus on the length of time. That's the duration. But saying, I've done this podcast since 2022, focuses entirely on that starting point. It is the exact same life, the exact same situation, but a completely different focus. It's actually pretty cool, because it shows how English listens carefully to how you frame time in your head before you even speak.
All right, section 3, real life and routines. Time to drop those boring textbook examples.
Imagine you're waiting for a friend at a cafe. You've got your coffee, you check your phone, you let out a big sigh, and you text them. You could easily say, I've been waiting for 20 minutes. That really emphasizes the long, dragging duration you've been sitting there. But if your friend replies and goes, oh no, when did you arrive? You would naturally respond, I've been waiting since 4 p.m. Both of these sentences are 100% natural and describe the exact same cafe visit. It simply depends on what you want to emphasize to your buddy. Let's do a little rapid fire practice. I want you to actively play along in your head right now to build up that intuitive rhythm. It really helps lower the grammar anxiety. Okay, waiting 30 minutes. Well, that's a duration, so it's for. Waiting 8 a.m., that's a specific start time on the clock, so it's since. On the phone an hour. You definitely feel that length of time, right? So it's for. On the phone morning, that's when the call began, so it's since. See? You've absolutely got this. It just takes a little calm practice and giving yourself permission to slow down. Now, I want to gently correct a super common learner mistake. And look, there is zero shame here. Sometimes folks will say, I am here since 2 hours. We completely understand what you mean, but let's tweak it to make it sound perfectly natural. The correct way to express that duration is, I have been here for 2 hours. And if you want to use the starting point, you'd say, I have been here since 3 o'clock. Notice how we use I have been because we're talking about something that started in the past and is still happening right now. But honestly, do not panic about the grammar names. Just focus purely on feeling the difference between the time duration and the starting moment.
Now, I really need to tackle a question that comes up all the time. People always ask, why can't we use since with a long time? Well, it's actually pretty simple. A long time is still a duration. It's a measurement of length, not a specific date on a calendar. Because of that, it strictly pairs with for. Saying I've known her for a long time is perfectly correct. Saying I've known her since a long time, well, it just sounds a bit off to a native ear because a long time simply isn't a starting point.
Let's see how this builds into everyday humor, because I absolutely love this example from the source material. Imagine someone tells you, "I've been dieting for 3 days." That sounds optimistic, right? It measures the duration of their hard work. But then they lean in and whisper, "But I've been thinking about pizza since morning." That pinpoints the exact moment the struggle began. It's funny, but it perfectly highlights how deeply human and everyday these two words really are. They help us express our daily struggles with total clarity.
Moving on to section 4, the emotion of language. Let's look at how grammar actually reveals our feelings.
You really see how grammar reveals feelings here. If someone says, "I've been feeling tired for weeks," that just feels heavy, doesn't it? You can physically feel the long, dragging duration of that exhaustion. But saying, "I've been feeling tired since last week," kind of changes the tone. Now we know exactly when it started, it provides clarity, and let me tell you, English loves clarity. For gives us the weight of the time, while since gives us the factual trigger.
Think about it like this. When you say, "I've been alone for a long time," you really feel that heavy duration. But shifting that to, "I've been alone since my friend moved away," suddenly makes it intensely personal and real. These tiny words don't just show time, they reveal the actual trigger of our emotions. They help us tell our life story. We aren't just memorizing grammar rules here, we're learning how to express the full human experience in English.
And this connects directly to your confidence. A lot of learners will say, "I've been shy for a long time." That's a totally honest measurement of time. But sometimes, when they dig a little deeper, they realize the real truth is, "I've been shy since someone laughed at my English." Do you see how replacing a simple duration with a specific, painful starting point turns a basic sentence into a really powerful narrative? That awareness matters so much, because once you identify that starting point, your since, the healing can start, and your language journey becomes so much kinder to yourself.
Which brings us to our final part. Section 5, Communication over Perfection. Building confidence through awareness.
So many people learn English on and off, right? You start, you stop, life gets busy, you start again. You might confidently tell people, "I've been learning English for 5 years," and that sounds really strong. But quietly in your head, you might know the deeper truth. Actually, I've been learning English seriously since last year. Admitting that specific starting point is honest. And let me tell you, that kind of honesty builds true speaking confidence. You aren't just reciting some textbook phrase. You are accurately describing your own personal growth.
I want to emphatically reassure you that the ultimate goal of this explainer is empowerment. If you mix up for and since in a real-world conversation, people are still going to understand you perfectly. I promise, it will not stop communication. Mixing up these words occasionally is just a totally normal part of the growth process. You just need calm practice. When you use them correctly, you sound calm and natural. But please, never let the fear of getting a small word wrong stop you from speaking your truth. I want to read this really beautiful quote from the source material, and I'm going to read it slowly to really anchor the emotional resonance of what we've covered today. English is not about how long, it's about where you started and why you continued. I mean, wow. That perfectly reminds us that your intention matters so much more than perfect textbook rules. You're learning for your future, and you've been growing since the day you chose not to give up. So I'll leave you with this final thought to chew on. Since when did you realize your communication matters more than perfection? Think about that starting point. Keep practicing without fear, focus on your unique story, and remember that every single time you try, you are already succeeding. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I literally cannot wait to dive into our next topic together.